know this place pretty well. My name's Kevin Bommer. I'm the executive director of the Colorado Municipal League, of which Wellington, the town of Wellington, is one of our 271 now member municipalities. And the handout, the presentation you have in front of you, you're also going to get it a PDF version. Ethan has that and can share it with you. And I was just asked to give a very brief overview of municipal home rule in Colorado, in the event that any discussions or occur, or there's interest in that. And I always like to ask first, who knows what home rule is, at least in Colorado's term? Go ahead, Ed.
Home rule is a form of government. It's a form of self-rule. Where you operate off of a municipal charter as opposed to state statutes. The charter doesn't replace statutes. It just replaces some of the powers and authorities in Title 31 of state statutes. In the event of a conflict, statutes typically overrule a home rule charter. But being a home rule allows you greater flexibility than maybe the powers and authorities that are granted under a statutory town or statutory city under Title 31.
Give that man a gold star. So that is correct. And what's unique about Colorado, as compared to other states, and you may hear Weld County and Pitkin County talking about being home rule counties. What's unique about municipal home rule in Colorado, it has its source in the Colorado State Constitution. So just a quick little historical background. Throughout the late 1800s and early 1900s, there was a lot of progressive movement in municipal government, weeding out graft and corruption, patronage, and all of that, but also adopting policies that allowed for greater self-governance at the local level. And here in Colorado, and it's interesting because the reason we have constitutional home rule in Colorado has a lot to do with, or is very similar to the reasons in which municipalities that are statutory municipalities today are interested in home rule. And that's because it starts with the state and what the state's doing or not doing. In Denver, the city had been granted a charter by the territorial legislature, a territorial charter. There's a lot of municipalities before statehood operated under a local charter granted by the territorial legislature. By the way, the town of Georgetown still operates under their territorial charter, which has to be amended from time to time with the legislation at the State House, which is fun. Denver and other cities after statehood were allowed to continue using their territorial charter, especially since at that time, and not until 1902, home rule wasn't constitutional. But the problem was, like with Georgetown today, is the state capital's in Denver, and the state legislature liked playing political football with Denver's charter, and essentially, in a couple different ways, put a lot of city operations under direct control of the legislature through legislation. And I'm going to leave a copy of this home rule handbook behind because it's a wonderful document and also something you can get more of. But from that, classic examples of state interference were charter amendments enacted by the General Assembly in 1889, providing for a board of public works, and in 1891 for a fire and police board, with members of both boards appointed by the governor. Thus, the state took over the control of Denver's public improvements, public safety, and other related activities. This is my favorite part. Armed conflict nearly broke out in 1894 when Governor Davis H. Waite had a dispute with two of his appointees to Denver's Fire and Police Commission over their failure to follow his policies and their subsequent failure to accept his attempt to remove them from office. Armed forces from the state and the city faced off at the then Denver City Building along 16th Street Mall, which is long since gone, before cooler heads prevailed and weapons were withdrawn. So armed conflict was how close we got. No one shot any guns off, but what they did do was manage to get support from some state legislators for municipal home rule, and the legislature referred a question to the ballot in 1901. Voters voted on it in 1902. That put Article 20 of the Colorado Constitution, which has been amended from time to time, into the Constitution, and then is supported by statutes that were largely drafted by the Colorado Municipal League in the 70s to help bring some clarity to some of the operational aspects. And so that is what brings us to really modern times, with now 107 of Colorado's 271 municipalities that have adopted home rule. And what that means, very simply, is they are allowed to self-govern in areas that are designated or affirmed as areas of local and municipal concern. That is the term of art that has evolved. The other areas which there is not complete autonomy are areas of mixed state local concern and areas of statewide concern. So the beauty of it is a lot of time you'll have legislation that passes that declares something a matter of statewide concern. And my line is, the legislature can say the moon is made of green cheese if they want to, but when it comes to constitutional home rule, ultimately only 7 justices in robes get to decide what is local and municipal concern, what is mixed state local concern, and what is matter of statewide concern. So that's sort of a preview of where I'll get to here. But municipal home rule in Colorado, as it developed and it was placed in the Constitution, reserves structural and functional home rule authority for municipalities and the full right to self-government in local and municipal matters to citizens. Now, this is really important. It's not the town that grants home rule, and it's not the town that ultimately determines the scope of home rule. It's all about citizens, voters, and what is put before them. And so here are a couple general arguments for home rule. And I'm going to give you some against, because when conversations occur, you may hear them come up. One, home rule provides greater flexibility to solve local problems because municipalities are less constrained by state requirements. Quicker response time. I mean, you can respond to a local issue much quicker than you would expect the state to. And those areas of purely local and municipal concern, the town would be free to chart its own path forward, as opposed to having to be at the whim of the state General Assembly and state statutes. Things that are ironclad, crystal clear areas of local concern, you can have complete confidence to legislate on, either directly, but that also counts for initiative as well. So citizens know that they can propose charter amendments or even ordinances through the power of initiative, and know that those areas that are specifically reserved to citizens or to home rule municipalities can also legislate in this area. So it really has a lot to do with engaging citizens. Citizens feel more engaged on and have more control over what is happening in their town, either through the town board or town council, or through their direct involvement. Now, there are some arguments against, or maybe some cautionary tales from those 107 over time. A lot of times there's a desire in drafting home rule charters to be really prescriptive, to try and think of everything. You think of like, homeowners associations and restrictive covenants where everything is covered, and that is generally not something that you want to do with a home rule charter. It's meant to be a framework, which then you build ordinances around under those authorities. And I'll talk more about that. But an overly restrictive charter can limit flexibility. And obviously, because there's the power of initiative, binding charter amendments could come through initiative, and then it's real tough to repeal those, because it then requires another vote or a very bold action by the governing body to refer a question, even if voters have voted on it already. And this happens from time to time when a home rule municipality legislates in an area that maybe it's a little unclear whether it's a purely local and municipal concern, but it's not clear that it's not. And so there's some legal uncertainty that can come from that. And when that happens, it usually gets worked out through the court of legal opinion. It is not cheap to go through the process of adopting a home rule charter. And that's just even before you get the final product before voters, but it's worth doing right. There are attorneys and consultants that have helped Severance, Hudson, Erie most recently, Keystone more recently than that, which incorporated as a home rule town just recently, Castle Pines and others. In fact, most of the last 7 or 8, with the exception of Erie, municipalities have been smaller towns and not larger cities. But it does require a fiscal commitment to make sure that you're putting your best product forward for citizens to consider when they go to vote. Home rule is not for everyone either. There are a lot of municipalities municipal leaders and residents who, when they're talking it through, say, we really don't have a problem operating under state statutes. We haven't had that big thing where we wish we could control our own destiny, or we weren't able to do it because of a restrictive state statute. So, and there are some, certainly a segment of the population out there that may think it's not a good idea for a lot of local and municipal concern items to be acted on locally, that it's good to have a more statewide perspective. The voters in Loch Bowie have rejected once for sure, and maybe twice now, even forming a charter commission, because there's the majority of the citizens there said, we're fine with where we're at. The timeline is really the most critical part, and this is why so much work has to be done before you start the clock. And the clock starting is the election of a charter commission. Obviously, generally a special election for that. Somewhere along the way, there's going to be a special election, most likely. But the timeline is timelines are in your handout, so I'm not going to read through all of it. Just know they're tight and have to be organized. And again, that's where having sound legal advice and maybe some outside consulting, someone who's done it before or can connect with someone who's done it before and recently, is really helpful. So the contents of a municipal charter, there are mandatory provisions that must be in it. For example, initiative and referendum and measures, recall of officers, provisions continuing, amending, and repealing existing ordinances, and a prefatory synopsis. But there are other things that you may find in a home rule charter that are exclusively or generally exclusively matters of local and municipal concern, whether or not you're a council manager form of government. Obviously, we have some strong mayor form of governments and some other variations, but for the most part, council manager is what most home rule municipalities are. Qualifications, terms of office, number of council members or board members, method of election, the election date, procedures, the administrative organization, how you establish boards and commissions, how you go about passing ordinances, resolutions, and motions, personnel systems, your municipal court, budget and finance, and how you limit or restrict the use of eminent domain. So it's really tempting to go look at other municipal charters, home rule charters, and say, we want to do that exactly. Just word of caution, if you get to that point, and it'll be the charter commission doing it, you want to be wary of using charters from other places. Now, there are certainly examples of things you'll find common throughout them, but it really needs to be something that is unique to the city or town that is considering drafting a home rule charter. So again, if the discussion is going to move forward and it does happen, being aware of the timelines, having your ducks in a row in terms of research and organization, staff can be wonderful help on that. There may and will likely be the requirement to certainly for just a consulting, some outside consulting, but also some legal consulting. And maybe the thing that, that some folks that some folks overlook in the excitement is, and you just have to have a lot of opportunity for residents and businesses to be part of the process and provide input and feedback. Because they're hearing about it for the first time. They may have heard of home rule, but well, what does that mean? What does it change? What is it going to do? I mean, you're going to be able to decide, anything and everything, and we lose part of our voice. You have to be able to talk that through, and get buy-in on that. And again, the biggest challenge, one of the biggest challenges is not to just look right in front of you, and things that are impacting the town now and how a home rule charter can help with that. But also 20 years from now, 30 years from now, having long-term vision and thinking about, is this document going to stand the test of time if voters approve it? Deeper into the presentation there, because I went over them very fast, the things that home rule municipalities in their charter may choose to, may make choices, choose your own adventure, if you will, form of government elected officials. There are some examples in there, and I'll just let you scan through those as you're reviewing the presentation. But know that there are a lot of options and a lot of things to consider, and pros and cons under each of them. Some have, and this is a pretty good number, pretty common number, but some have gone to larger when, if they're going to go to a town council, they'll add some seats. Obviously, one of the big ones is finance. What's your sales tax rate going to be? That's something that obviously voters would have to weigh on if it's going to be a Tabor question, increase revenues, but also what's on your sales tax base? Are you going to, we're seeing less of this and actually a movement away, but if as a home rule municipality, you would have the ability to self-collect sales tax, the local sales tax. And there are pros and cons to that as well. And then just the operational aspects of local government. So here's sort of a current example of why home rule matters. I'll give you two. In 2022, a bill passed through the General Assembly declaring as a matter of statewide concern a requirement that home rule municipalities follow the state sales tax exemption for use tax on construction materials used for public schools. That was a big mouthful, but it essentially directed home rule municipalities if follow the state's tax base. That only impacted about 6 home rule municipalities. Most municipalities already exempted construction materials from public school construction, but 5 of them didn't. 2 of them were a couple of the largest municipalities in the state, one of them being Denver. Boulder, Westminster was another one. And the legislature passed the bill and went through flying colors. It's one of the last ones that I lobbied personally, and I guess I didn't do a very good job because it passed overwhelmingly. Governor Polis signed into law, and hooray, they're going to save people money. Well, home rule municipalities, beyond just the 5 or 6 that were directly impacted, we're a little nervous about that, because if the state legislature can start legislating what home rule municipalities can and can't tax, and arguably then what their tax rate might be, that was sort of a watershed moment. And so those municipalities, 5 of the 6 made the decision to sue the state and ask for a declaratory judgment invalidating the state statute that passed, and they won in Denver District Court. The state chose not to appeal, which was probably smart, because I think they would have gotten their clock cleaned. But in any event, that was where municipal home rule was not adjudicated by the General Assembly, who in that case, they thought they were making the best policy, and that's what they get elected to do. But constitutional home rule means something. A lot of the housing and land use legislation that has passed even this year, and the big one that was defeated last year, inserts language that either says directly or tangentially that these are matters of either statewide concern or mixed state and local concern. We spend a lot of time trying to advise the legislature that there is peril legislating in these areas because you don't have the authority that you think you have. And it doesn't matter if I say that, doesn't matter if they think differently, but ultimately the court of legal opinion would be where that's determined. And it remains to be seen what, a lot of the home rule municipalities will do as you're reading about some of the requirements that are being placed upon them now, whether they will follow the same example and sue the state. I don't know if that's quite as likely on this one because the state it really doesn't have any direct authority to enforce any of those provisions on municipalities. So it's possible they might ignore them. It doesn't apply to us. And then that might invite, a lawsuit here and there, or again, they could take the aggressive step of trying to throw them out. I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do, and I'm going to be very curious. But it's on these issues of land use, one of the areas that has been certainly through the courts carved out as an area of local and municipal concern with very, very few exceptions. I think they have a strong case to defend their home rule authority, and then work hopefully collaboratively with the state to resolve, a lot of the policy around housing, land use, and development. So that's a modern day example, and it means something. There are certainly numerous other examples of where legislation has led to litigation, and depending on the issue, home rule municipalities have been generally very successful in defending home rule authority, and the courts have developed some wonderful tests for helping define and what is a matter of local and municipal concern, what is a matter of mixed state local concern, and what's a matter of statewide concern. So again, it's not a carte blanche to just do whatever you want locally. There are state statutes that would still govern. And again, there can be some uncertainty in newer areas. My advice is let the big boys do that. And if they go to court and win, then you got a clear path. So let's see. Last thing. Some decisions that would ultimately need to be made. If you feel like you're in a good place, you got the timeline set up, you feel like you got good local support. And just the last thing here, the things that would need to be made, decisions that need to be made by the town board will be the size of the charter commission. Because of your size, you can have from 9 to, I think it's up to 21 charter commissioners. 9 is a great number. 13 is not uncommon. I haven't really seen any more than that. That's a lot of people working on that. And again, they're going to run for election to be on the charter commission. But the size of it is something that the town board would decide in the question that's referred to the voters. The date and the time that the charter commission meets, and the calendar for placing the home rule initiative on the ballot. So, those are things that the town would guide. But other than that, the charter commission, once elected, which one would presume is, working closely with, with the town and businesses and residents, is going to follow what is prescribed of it to turn around, hopefully, a charter charter they feel confident can be referred to the voters and the voters would adopt. I think I've covered a lot of process. I've gone like really high level just in the interest of time. And yeah, just the last thing, and this one might be just a little bit couple years outdated, but I can fill in the blanks here. So, where do most people live? 93% of residents in Colorado, a little bit higher now, live in a home rule city or town. And 69% overall of Colorado residents live in a home rule municipality. In 1940, there were 10 home rule municipalities. In 2000, there were 80. In 2021, there were 104, and with Keystone, we were at 107. City of Salida is currently in the process of, I believe they have elected a charter commission, and are, on the clock to refer something. So we have 108 soon. And again, finally, just for a lot of the same reasons that we talk about, there are areas that residents and local elected leaders want to ensure or address locally. And there's a lot of certainty in home rule about where you can do that without, any interference from the state. And it doesn't mean it doesn't come up from time to time, but it really does allow for true self-governance in a great number of aspects. Any questions?
Kevin, thanks so much for coming up to make this presentation.
You bet.
I understand that the Colorado Municipal League also provides resources for communities that are doing this. Apparently, there's a handbook, there's
Yes,
sample charters and so forth. Like
you
that.
bet. We have all 107 charters. This home rule handbook has everything that I just said, but a lot more coherently and a lot greater detail. All the history and samples, not samples of charters, but we can certainly provide those for all 107. This was just recently updated just within the last couple of years, so it's very current. And we also have just, when you get to the right point, we have sample educational documents that the town could distribute to residents, at the right time. So yes, we have a lot of resources that are available for members to draw upon. And I'm going to leave, like I said, I'm going to leave a copy of the book behind. Just know that more can be ordered, and they can be also ordered as PDFs as well, and passed around. And I would encourage you to do that and take a deeper dive into the history's sort of, that's kind of geek out on the history, but it's like, what's happening now and how did we get here? And, what are some of the key points along the way? You can learn a lot just from this handbook, but also, the examples from other municipalities and what they're doing and how they've established their home rule charters.
Yeah, I have just a few questions. So is there in this resources that you guys have at the league, is there like a blanket cost estimate of what this actually costs a municipality to complete an item like this?
It's a great question, and I'm going to give you a terrible answer. It really depends. And
I
so
expected that, so it's
and
not
so-
terrible.
Well, like I said, it's not something you want to, if I didn't say this, I will. It's not something you want to skimp on, but I think there are enough municipalities and similarly sized municipalities that have been through this recently that, one of the things that I would be thrilled to do is just connect you with some of the practitioners that have helped those municipalities, as well as key individuals, whether they be elected or appointed, just to talk through. This is the process we went through. This is who we hired. This is how much we spent. If we had it to do differently or do over again, here's what I would have done differently. Here's what we would have done the same. And really, I think learning from those that have been through it, even though everyone is unique, a lot of the process, certainly in the last several, are the same. And especially when you can say, okay, let's just pick on severance for a second. They started early. They engaged their citizens and businesses, and got the charter commission elected, had several meetings, and they did it in about as short a time as possible. They're a similarly sized municipality, arguably with a lot of the same types of issues, growth pressures, and all of that. I think that would be my first stop, especially since it's right next door. Hudson's another one, kind of some different dynamics there, just in terms of growth pressures, although they've certainly got them. But, a smaller, municipality where people are looking to grow. So I hope that justifies it depends. It does depend on the circumstances, but I think that any one of the managers there, or any of the elected officials, or charter commissioners that are, still around and available would be more than happy to talk through what they learned and to your question, how much they spent.
Got it. My other question feeds into our LCSO contracts. How does that look when you transition to, if the voters approve it and that happens, do we have home rules that have LCSO serving as far as Larimer County Sheriff's Office in those municipalities? Or how do they uphold like a Colorado statute and then our own charter if those rules are changing?
Yeah, home rule won't change. And council can ping me if I say something, but home rule won't change your contractual relationship that you would have with the SO. Your municipal ordinances are enforceable, whether you're a home rule municipality or statutory municipality, so long as the sheriff's office is, contracted and willing to enforce them, right? But, one of the largest home rule municipalities in the state, the city of Centennial, does not have its own police force. It still contracts with the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office, and they have a dedicated City of Centennial unit for Centennial from Arapahoe County. But that would not be generally affected. The biggest thing would be is if you decided to have your own police department, but you could do that as a statutory municipality.
Right. I just wanted to make sure that, and I guess it's probably something that will take additional conversations, that if LCSO is willing to enforce rules that are only Wellington specific, or if we have officers that come from out of town to help with service. I think that one will be something I have a lot more questions about. My last question was property taxes. So my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I've done a lot of reading and there is a lot of stuff to read on this. The property taxes would then be decided by a local municipality if they choose to do so, or does that remain at the state level or the county level?
For example, the legislation that was just passed, Senate Bill 233, is impacting home rule municipalities that collect property tax the same as it is statutory municipalities. So it really doesn't change much there. Sales tax, 100%. It is a local and municipal issue, but property taxes are largely governed through state statute.
Got it. So we couldn't go in and say, hey, we're going to raise your property taxes by 15% or blah, blah, blah.
Well, we still have to.
You can have mill levy elections. None of that would change going from statutory to home rule.
Okay. Got it. Those are my questions. Thank you. No, you're fine.
Trustee Moore?
Thank you. Very informative, very quick, efficient. Thank you.
Trustee Wiegand?
Just a couple quick ones here. Can you give us a few more examples of what the towns have done going to home rule and what they've passed and been able to accomplish? And the last thing is, are we giving up anything going to home rule?
Let me take the last one first. In my opinion, the answer is no, you're not giving anything up other than, maybe the possibility of the state legislature changing a state statute that you like just the way it was, and you can't do much about it because you're a statutory municipality. So you could give that up if you have a charter and it's something you've are legislating and with clear authority under your charter. It doesn't matter what the state does. That's one of the, I think, unmitigated joys that a lot of people experience when they are able to pass an ordinance under their home rule authority and think that's it, and then it's direct accountability good, bad, or indifferent with residents, but at least it's local. And sorry, repeat the first part of that again.
Just could you give us a
But
few
what other
more
cities have-
examples?
You know, there are so many layers and moving parts to a home rule charter. Like, I can't tell you, other than the general interest of self-governance and local determination, if there was any one specific thing that motivated any of the recent municipalities to say, we need to, break free from being a statutory municipality and adopt a home rule charter. I will tell you that, almost all of the charters that have been adopted have been very basic, very basic. They're not complicated at all. And that's a good thing, because what that means is the existing council and future councils have the ability within that authority that citizens, residents give under the home rule charter to be able to adapt where an overly restrictive or detailed charter can bind a municipality. So the best thing to do there will be at the right time and staff would, including my staff and I, would be able to provide examples of what municipalities have put in their charters, and we have that broken down into a matrix that is admittedly due for an update, at least the printed version of it, but we can provide side by sides at any moment. And then it's an inquiry, say to Hudson, well, you put this in your charter, and Severance, you did it a different way. How come you did that, and or do you like it? But having the latitude within a clear structure on your tax, finance, personnel, operations, everything that you can legislate locally under a charter, but having that flexibility to adapt with the times, particularly in a fast-growing environment, is really a blessing. I think I'm biased, but
Thank you.
you bet.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Director Bommer, really appreciate you coming down. This is a great presentation, and I think there's lots of pros and cons, certainly both directions on this. I was just curious if, as far as your opinion, and I don't know if you're familiar with ballot measure 300 in Loveland, which had recently passed eliminating their sales tax on food for home consumption. I'm just curious, they're projecting, I think, a $13 million or so budget shortfall this year. And I'm curious, obviously, if we were to move forward with something like this, I would want to avoid a situation where something like that was to happen, and you essentially are going to look at having to cut services kind of across the board. So I'm just curious, is that something you would look at incorporating into a charter as far as avoiding that type of situation, or just kind of your general opinion there?
That's good questions, doesn't he? So here's the rub. It's what is it? Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility, right? When you, as a home rule municipality, establish your tax base, what's taxable and what isn't, informed by voters. If it's going to increase revenue, you have to have a Tabor vote for that. One of the other things that's constitutional, and it doesn't matter if you're home rule or not, is the power of citizens' initiative. And that's exactly what happened in Loveland. And as a home rule municipality, that they did tax food for home consumption, the citizens' initiative said, well, we would like to remove that from the tax base. And they did. Voters approved that. But again, I'll go back to where I started. The power of a home rule charter is not with the board or the council, it's with people. And yes, in the case of Loveland, you mentioned there are some very real consequences to how that power has been exercised, but it is something that, as both a home rule municipality that has established its own tax base and the power of initiative that everyone enjoys at the state and municipal level, county somehow got out of that. I don't know how, but that is the new reality there. And they're not the, it happened in Lakewood, 15 or so years ago as well. There was a proposal in Aurora to do the same, from the council to refer a question. That happens. The other area where this has come up, it has been, and not recently, and you don't have your own police or fire department, but a lot of labor contractual type issues, collective bargaining, things like that. There are a lot of home rule municipalities that have in their charter the authority for collective bargaining. It's limited in a lot of cases, but and other structural type of things like that can be changed one way or the other by voters if they are successful in an initiative. What you may cause as one of the things to look at what the threshold is for petitions and the form of the petition and all of that. These are all things that you can legislate as a home rule municipality. And trust me, we've got a lot of data on that. There are some shockingly low signature thresholds from some cities you wouldn't expect it, and Denver being one of them. It is piece of cake, even with all the people that have to go around to get a question on the ballot. And then there's some that, it's much harder. They have to work for it. And when you consider that a charter is like a constitution, if you will, it makes a little bit of sense that it should be hard, that the charter itself should be hard to change, but that doesn't mean like what's on the sales tax base, which is part of that charter authority, can't be changed if voters go for it.
Sure. Thank you. Appreciate the answer.
More questions? What about enterprise funds? I know that this is the thing. So when you have a charter, if you were to work within your own private charter, I know enterprise funds has a cap that is set at like the 10% or items like that. Can you change any of that if you were to transition towards?
Anything that is required by Tabor or covered by Tabor is not something that a home rule municipality can legislate away.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you.
Could go further, but Tabor specifically overrides any home rule. And there's other areas of statute too. It's not as exciting as Tabor, but you can't create your own liquor laws as a home rule municipality. There are some things that are delegated to local authority under the liquor laws, but from Denver to Wellington, your authority is governed by what the statutes say in that regard.
Thank you.
You bet.
I just thank you for coming up and
Yeah.
giving us this presentation. We'll have more discussion on this, hopefully.
Well, it sounds like the beginning of some sort of journey. So I wish you luck. Please know that the league is available as a resource to all of you as well as to staff. And I'll leave my cards up here and just reach out anytime and keep me posted.
Thank you, sir.
All right, you bet. You bet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been waiting for like 20 minutes for me.
Well, yeah, it started late, so, yeah.
We don't have audio visual. You guys ready? Okay, I now call to order the May 14th, 2024 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, time being 6:50 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the republic for which it stands,
Mr. Clerk, make it a roll call, please.
Trustee Daly,
Present.
trustee Moyer,
Here.
trustee Teets,
Here.
trustee Cannon.
Here.
Trustee Wiegand,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mason.
Here.
Mayor Shosse.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there any amendments to the agenda this evening? Are there any conflicts of interest with the agenda this evening? No. Now is going to be time for public comment. Members wishing to speak, please provide your name for the record, and you'll be given 3 minutes on non-agenda items. Okay, no public comment. All right, so next we will have a proclamation for Mental Health Awareness Month. Whereas prioritization of mental health is essential to the well-being of our town as life is filled with many difficulties and stressors, and whereas prevention and awareness of mental health issues are an effective means of reducing the burden of mental health conditions in our residents, and whereas each business, school, government agency, healthcare provider, and resident in our town shares the responsibility to acknowledge mental health issues and support prevention efforts while encouraging healthy living. Now, therefore, I, Kaylor Shosse, Mayor of the Town of Wellington, Colorado, do hereby proclaim the month of May as Mental Health Awareness Month. As Mayor, I call upon all citizens, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools in our town to recommit to advancing understanding of mental health issues in our community, and I encourage our residents to support the need for appropriate access to services for those affected with mental health issues. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the Town of Wellington to be affixed to this 14th day of May, 2024. Next, I will have a proclamation for Peace Officers Week. Will the members of Larimer County Sheriff that are present please come forward today so I can read this proclamation and then present it to you. Whereas deputies of Larimer County Sheriff's Department stand watch over our citizens, selflessly risking their lives to protect individuals, families, neighborhoods, and protect against crime. And whereas it is important that all citizens recognize the duties and the responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of local law enforcement agencies. And whereas Wednesday, May 15th is observed nationally as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in the performance of the duty. And whereas the deputies of the Larimer County Sheriff's Office, by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities, have rendered dedicated services to the community. Now, therefore, I, Kaylor Shosse, Mayor of the Town of Wellington, Colorado, do hereby proclaim the week of May 12th through the 18th, 2024, as Peace Officers Week in the Town of Wellington, and hereby publicly salute the service of law enforcement officers in our community. In witness thereof, I hereunto set my hand, cause the seal of Wellington, Town of Wellington, to be affixed this 14th day of May, 2024.
Close the door and in front of the podium. Go up in front of the podium, please, and get away from the trash cans. One, two, three, one, two. Perfect, thank you.
Next, we have a proclamation for Public Works Week. Members of the Public Works Department, please come forward and I will read the proclamation and then present it. All right. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, quality of life, and well-being of the residents of the Town of Wellington. And whereas these infrastructure facilities, and services could not be provided to our community without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees, and who are responsible for the maintenance, improvement, and protection of our town's transportation, water supply, water treatment systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential to our citizens. And whereas the year of 2024 marks the 64th annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association. And whereas the town is extremely proud of our talented, highly skilled staff and officially recognizes, appreciates, and supports them in their professional growth. Now therefore, I, Kaylor Shosey, Mayor of Wellington, Colorado, do hereby proclaim the week of May 19th through the 25th of 2024 as Public Works Week, and urge all of our citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association in the celebration of the public works professionals and their contributions to protecting the health, safety, and quality of life for our community. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the town of Wellington to be affixed to this 14th of May, 2024. Now we have a proclamation for Kids to Parks Day. Will the members of the Parks and Rec and Prost Board that have attended the meeting please come forward? I will read the proclamation and then present it. Whereas, I'll wait for Billy. Didn't want to make you run. Sorry about that. All right, whereas May 18th, 2024 is the 14th Kids to Parks Day organized and implemented by the National Park Trust, held annually on the third Saturday of May. And whereas Kids to Parks Day empowers kids and encourages families to get outdoors and visit local parks, public lands, and waters. And whereas Kids to Parks Day will broaden children's appreciation for nature and the outdoors. And Kids to Parks Day will recognize the importance of recreating responsibly while enjoying the benefits of the outdoors. Sorry for that pause. And whereas Kids to Parks Day will foster future outdoor enthusiasts and help with developing the next generation of park stewards by engaging kids with memorable outdoor experiences. Now, therefore, I, Kaylor Shosey, Mayor of the Town of Wellington, Colorado, do hereby proclaim May 18th, 2024 as Kids to Park Day in the Town of Wellington, and I urge all citizens to celebrate our community's youth and nature by going outdoors. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the Town of Wellington to be affixed to this 14th day of May, 2024.
On three, ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, I will now close the regular meeting and open the Liquor License Authority Board, time being 7 p.m. Mr. Clerk, will you please give a roll call?
Trustee Cannon?
Here.
Trustee Wiegand?
Here.
Trustee Moyer?
Here.
Trustee Teets?
Here.
Trustee Daly,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Mason.
Here.
Mayor Shosse. Here. Thank you. We still have a quorum.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, will you please read the title of the item for consideration?
Action item one A, special event liquor permit application, Wellington, Colorado Main Streets Program, Brewfest.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Before we hold a hearing on this item, are there any conflicts of interest or ex parte communications that the board has to disclose? No. Okay. Mr. Clerk, will you please introduce the item?
Certainly, and I'll do so from over here since the applicant's already appeared before you as well. The Wellington, Colorado Main Streets Program has applied for a special event liquor permit for an event to be held on June the 1st of 2024. That event is in your, the diagram for that event is in your packet for your review. The town accepted the application is complete on May the 1st and in accordance with applicable law. Posted notice of the proposed premise of the for the board's consideration of this application tonight. The applicant is not subject to sales tax licensure requirements as a 501c3 nonprofit organization. They have received permission from the property owner for this event, and they have paid the application fee in accordance with the town's fee schedule. Town has not received any petitions or remonstrances from the public regarding this application during the notice period. Staff would recommend that you hold a public hearing on this application to determine two things. First, whether the application complies with the needs, desires, and reasonable requirements of the neighborhood. And second, whether the applicant's proposed safety plan is sufficient. If after the public hearing, you are satisfied that the application is sufficient, then we've identified additional motions for you there in the packet. Do you have any questions for the administrative part of this application for me?
I
Sure,
do have a
please.
question related to ADA and accessibility. I noticed in the map here that there's really no access for wheelchairs or walkers. Is there any special steps that are being taken to allow that access to wheelchairs and walkers on grass and non-hard surfaces?
That would be a question I would likely recommend you direct to the applicant.
Perfect.
Hi, so I'm Gloria Van Sant. I'm the event coordinator. So to answer your question about ADA accessibility, what we have is the to the west side in front of the community services building, there's handicap parking. And then that northwest corner there is the entrance into the event for all participants. There are sidewalks available there. We don't have anything. We do have inside the park picnic tables that are ADA accessible, and we also have bathrooms that'll be set up ADA and cleaned in advance, and that's our plan for ADA.
Got it. So my question was more about the mobility while in the park area. Is there anything you can do to help wheelchairs and walkers gain access to non-hard surface areas? Can the grass be scheduled to be mowed shorter that day to allow for additional mobility? I don't know if you've ever tried to push a wheelchair on grass before. It can be very difficult. And I know that in reading over special event permitting and the requirements through all of the titles, one of them is allocating for that transportation throughout the entire event, not just the sidewalks around the outside of the event. So that's what I was just trying to figure out, if anything specific was set up or there's anything extra we could do to maybe assist with that.
To my knowledge, that's the plan that I just outlined is what we have in place. As far as mowing, I think that's a great idea, and I'm open to other suggestions. And I can also take this to the Wellington Brewfest LLC and have them brainstorm to try and come up with something.
That would be awesome. I'm not gonna vote this down because you don't have it. It's just we have the ADA, we sent 2 employees to ADA for this training. And it was my understanding when we were looking through and reviewing these packets that those kind of items were going to be addressed when we were looking at it, is the mobility and accessibility in our community. I just was trying to figure out, if I didn't see it here in this map, if it had been allocated already. I know that there is programs that you can work with that offer the platforms that you lay on top of the grass to increase the mobility, or setting around the vendors around the outside where the sidewalks are, so that maneuverability is still accessible. And it doesn't cut them off from enjoying the festival itself. Just FYIs, but it's an idea to possibly toss around and see what we can't do about increasing that accessibility in the future.
Okay, all right.
Thanks.
Thank you. Do you wish to make a presentation on this application?
No, I think you have everything there in front of you.
Perfect. Are there any other general questions from the board on this item? No. Okay. I will now open the public hearing on this application, time being 7:07 p.m. Individuals wishing to provide public comment on this item, please sign in the sheet behind the podium. State your name clearly for the microphone. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to provide comments. Okay. I will now close the public hearing of this application, time being 7:07 p.m. Does the applicant wish to provide a rebuttal? Okay. Are there any closing comments from staff?
Not at this time, Mayor Shosse.
Does the board desire to deliberate further on this item? Hearing no further deliberation, do I hear a motion on this item?
I make a motion to approve the special event liquor permit application.
Second?
Mr. Clerk, may I get a roll call, please?
Trustee Moyer,
Yes.
Trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
Trustee Daly,
Yes.
Trustee Teets,
Yes.
Trustee Cannon,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mason,
Yes.
Mayor Shosse.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously and the application is approved.
thank you. Thank you for coming today. I will now close the Liquor License Authority Board and reopen the regular meeting, time being 7:08 p.m. I will now close the regular meeting and open the Library Board, time being 7:08 p.m. Mr. Clerk, may I get a roll call, please?
Excuse me. Trustee Daly,
Present.
Trustee Wiegand,
Here.
Trustee Cannon.
Here.
Trustee Teets,
Here?
Trustee Moyer,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mason.
Here.
Mayor Shosse.
Here.
Thank you. We still have a quorum.
Thank you. Mr. Ross
Say it.
LaGenesse.
Oh.
I'm so bad at it. I'm so bad.
We know, we know.
Please
It's
correct
okay,
me.
it's okay.
Please correct me. Can you say it fancy? like?
LaGenesse. There,
LaGenesse.
okay.
There we go.
Just Ross.
The
is fine.
library director will present this item to the board. Mr. LaGenesse.
Good evening. As the mayor said, I am Ross LaGenesse, the public library director here in Wellington. First off, I have not been able to say it publicly. Welcome, congratulations, Trustee Cannon and Trustee Moyer. So good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and trustees. I'll try to keep this brief. I have an agreement with a group of children that are going to take some risks and work on a program with us, and I'm going off script tonight. That was the deal. So I have no script. The biggest thing I want to go over this evening is annually we report public library annual reporting. It goes to the state and it goes to the feds. All of our numbers, everything. As people are aware, in the last couple of years, I had made a concerted effort to really draw down the raw data. Everything is tactile now, so this reporting here that you have in front of you in the packet, I believe it starts on page 48 for those that are at home looking at the packet, is our most defined reporting yet. There are two factors people are aware. I do look at things globally every single year, what could affect us, what could affect our budget. So recently, two factors that I've been aware of and been kind of preparing for is the post-pandemic flatline. People after the pandemic and things were opened up, everybody went everywhere. We're seeing it with restaurants, hotels, OC rates are lower or flatlining. So I've been watching that, and also the middle and high school moving. We used to get a lot of foot traffic from the middle school. They were here for hours, so being mindful of that. So we pivoted as always, and I am very happy to announce that all of our numbers are up. The numbers that are supposed to be up. Some numbers are supposed to decrease. All of our good ones have increased. In the packet I did share, if you know me, I put notes on everything. These are my little notes to myself. I decided to throw that in the packet so you can see. So on page 48, I'm just going to kind of go through the high level. Our registered users or new library patrons increased. This is, like I said, in comparison to national statistics and Colorado statistics is rare. So we're very proud of that. Our operating revenue, this is a number I would like to decrease. So all of these changes and all of these increases were done under budget. I think I came in at 97. I check every week at the end of the year, and I think we're at 97. So if you go to page 52, our total collection expenditures, I have on there a note to myself, and I thought, oh, do I throw this in? We're really honing in on the needs of our residents and what resources are relevant, what resources are needed. I do like to use the word pivot often. We pivot sometimes weekly. We may recognize that something isn't utilized for a month, so we pivot and try something else. So really honing in on how we spend our money and making sure that there's an ROI that can be monitored. Total operating expenditures, you know that from the budget. Page 55 is our total collection use. That means people using our resources was a 49% increase. That means that, again, we are honing in, people are using, they want what we have in our library, in our rural library. Our technology, as you are aware, we are working with other libraries. We have digital navigators, so we have support coming into the library to work with people that need a little more assistance with technology. Everything increased in technology. You see 189% in the number of usages in the library on computers. People in Wellington do depend on our computers. 87%, you see the numbers. We're doing well. Library visits, up 15%. Our on-site programs. So this kind of ties into why I shared the summer reading program events. Our attendance has increased, and this is why I shared 2022. So you can share apples to apples. So our off-site programs, also us going out into the community, all the collaborations that we do with different departments in town, with Boys and Girls Club, with Rice, with iStone, all these things that you see us doing, Sparge, any of this. We had an 87% increase in attendance with those events. Program attendance, 94% increase. People exposed, 34. So you see the numbers. They're all the up arrow, I call them, which is what I like to see. A lot of times you don't know how it's going to end at the very end until you're doing the reporting and collecting the data. So each year, since I started with my tenure, I've been very proud of our staff. We have changed direction on the boat. We've headed in a different direction, and it has paid off. So the money you have approved, when I come to ask, it is calculated, and this is why we keep increasing, which we are bucking a national trend. Bucking. Sorry, you gave me a look. I also wanted to share something we're very proud of. We've been working very hard on increasing the accessibility to our library. We have replaced all of our conference tables and meetings tables with ADA compliant tables. This was in great help and connection with Kelly Hodling with the ADA department. She helped figure out a design. We were able to purchase 4 of them, all within budget, and they are utilized. It has been really a lot of joy to watch. We do have a contingent group that comes in. They're very excited. They feel honored. We sometimes play limbo under the tables, so they're really enjoying them. We also have replaced our seating. They are stools. They take some getting used to. But what this allows for, their architect stools, this allows for caregivers or parents to sit eye to eye with their children or their stead. So like I said, they take some getting used to, but it's for a good reason. And if people do keep asking, I wanted to share, people keep asking, they're from Elephant Desks in Wyoming because people want to know where we got them. And they are brilliant. And reach out to Zen, tell him you're from the Wellington Public Library, and he'll cut you a deal. They've been very easy to work with. So I did also in the packet share our WPL summer events. We are getting ready for the summer reading program. It is our biggest event. There is so much that goes on behind the scenes, but we are ready. We are making a few changes this year, but last year I did come to the board and I asked for some more money, not much, but for programming. I like to come back and show evidence. Here's where the money has been spent. So we were able to add an art collage program, which attracts a certain reading portion of our summer reading program. We were able, this is personal, we were able to get the taiko drummers this year, which is great. And if anybody knows, kids love them. They're loud. They put water on them so kids get wet. So it is interactive. So we're very excited about that. So your approval paid for this. The Friends of the Library has donated. We were able to get the Denver Museum of Nature and Science up here for 3 workshops that are interactive. So we are, again, expanding our events. We also have events in between these, but these are the major ones for the summer. So we appreciate it. I want to take a moment, and I always try to do this. I want to take a moment and thank my staff. I know I'm not easy, and I know I ask a lot. And I know I say, get on this ship. It's good, I promise. They work tirelessly, both professionally and personally. So all of this good news, I only have good news. We're not going into a but or however. This is all good news. I have a great team, and I have a great community, and we have a community that supports us. So thank you. That's my update. Any questions?
Thank you. Are there any further deliberations from the board?
On page 58, it says, did your library offer live virtual programs? What are these?
So that's something you can do. We did them during COVID, during the shutdown. We only had curbside. People weren't allowed in the library. So that was like story time via YouTube. We just have so many people that want to be in person, and we have to kind of funnel our energy and fun. So that's what that is.
Makes sense.
We don't do it anymore. I guess we could consider like social media, but we don't. We put it somewhere else.
Trustee Moore.
I just want to say thank you. We've heard, through the years how important it is to have a really great library accessible to everyone. And I just want to say thank you to you and your staff for all that you've done. The numbers speak for themselves. Like you said, these increases are incredible, and just thank you so much.
You are welcome.
Trustee Daddy.
Also, a big thank you from me. I got the opportunity to participate in a lot of those outreach programs. And the library seems to partner with a lot of the different organizations in town, whether it's Park and Rec or Boys and Girls Club. I got to attend that event. Very well attended, so much fun, and so welcoming and accessible. So I wanted to compliment you for your efforts in doing that. Always, of course, promoting curiosity, creativity, and connection. So I love that so much. And libraries continue to be primarily the only free option for people to have entertainment, to meet up and be with people. And the opportunity to be with people in a place that's free are becoming less and less available. So the work that you do serves our entire community, and it is a valuable asset. And I know that you guys definitely work hard as a staff, even through challenging staffing, scheduling, and other opportunities like that, yet you still pull it off. So I hope that we can relieve some of that in the future for your assistance. But keep up the great work, and thank you for serving Wellington.
Thank you. It's an honor. It really is.
Trustee Cannon?
I also want to congratulate you and your staff on what you're doing at the library. I'm looking at these summer events. I want to load my phone with all of these events. I'd love to go to a foam party, but I'm probably too. I'm going to take pictures. I'm not going to jump in the foam.
Oh, no, so,
All
no,
of
no,
it
no.
sounds like a lot of fun.
Trustee Cannon, you're not aware. We try to serve and honor and reflect all. So we do have a portion of the foam party that is for adults only, and the kids have to get out. They're used to it, and then adults get in, and they do. And she's shaking her head.
He's taking me seriously.
Someone with a disability,
Mhm.
and she maneuvered around that foam fest. Fantastic. So,
It does get a little soggy, so we try to have
but it's
and move a
cushioned.
bit. Yeah.
Since it's on grass, it's cushioned. So if she did fall, she just laughed about it to begin with. So
Right.
no, it's pretty amazing. So sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's all right. I just wanted to thank you and your staff for what you're doing at the library, for these events, for bringing people together, for doing it all under budget, and expanding the opportunities, not just for families and kids, but for anybody in the community. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
You're very welcome.
Well, I'm going to say a lot of the same things that everybody else has said, but Director, I got to hand it to you. You know, it's not very often that any group, you know, is able to come before the board and be able to say, you know, all the numbers we wanted to see go up have gone up in the right direction. So I really appreciate all the hard work you've done and the staff, and thank you.
You're very welcome.
I appreciate what you're doing and love your energy. Just wish you would just get it a little higher. Okay?
I'm working on it.
Okay. Thank you.
That is the thanks to the staff.
Awesome.
I'm sorry, trustee, what? I'm sorry.
No, my comment comes more from the community in general. So whenever I interact with someone, even one of your employees, they have nothing but great things to say about you. So I don't think that, I know you probably feel like you ask a lot of them, but the feedback that I get from some of them is they absolutely love being a part of the library, but also working with you. So, and I watch your Instagram videos and giggle all the time at them. I think it's pretty cool. No, I'm pretty much excited to see all these new events coming. I know I've brought my little and not so little to come to the events, and we have enjoyed them. I'm looking to see where you take this moving forward. I'm excited to see additional events added going into the future and what that actually brings for some of our homeschooled kiddos here in town that actually show up to a lot of these events. So thank you very
Well,
much.
sorry. That also, you know, we had the early literacy grant, which has a homeschooling portion to it. So we have kits, and, you know, we try to catch everybody.
Yeah.
And I apologize to some people at Ridley's when I just attack you. I really want to know what you're curious about.
Well, thank you, Mr. LaGenesse.
You're welcome, Mr.
You do a phenomenal job. You've built amazing culture with the employees in the library and the people that volunteer their time. You're driven, and the success bleeds throughout the entire library. So thank you for the dedication, the blood, the sweat, the tears, everything you've done to put into that for our community. And I appreciate all that you do. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Hearing no further deliberation, I now close the library board and reopen the regular meeting, the time being 7:25 p.m. Next, we'll have a presentation from Mr. Zachery Anderson, Community Impact Deputy with Larimer County Sheriff's Office on the flock camera system. Mr. Anderson.
Hi, guys. As you know, my name's Zach Anderson. I'm the Community Impact Deputy for the Sheriff's Office. I'm actually contractually assigned down to the town of Berthoud, but kind of spearheaded this project as he came along. It's obviously my understanding there's some new trustees here, so I'll kind of fill in the gaps. So don't worry, don't gotta start Googling stuff as we kind of go along, and you guys should have a copy of the updated presentation in your files. So obviously I came and talked to the board. It's been a little bit about the project when we first came along with it. So I'm going to kind of talk about what the project is. So those of you that are new kind of have an understanding what this is. So the town board down in Berthoud came and approached the sheriff's office that works for them, so the squad that's there, and asked for us to look into some ways to try and combat some property crime that was ongoing in Berthoud, just due to a really large influx of like construction builds. So a lot of it was construction site theft, burglary from construction sites, auto theft from cars that are around, vehicle trespasses, that kind of stuff. I kind of spearheaded the project that turned into this, which is just looking into license plate readers. And then we partnered with this company called Flock Safety to do a demo of their product. I'll kind of talk about some of the issues we ran into it just with permitting when it comes to CDOT right-of-ways and that kind of stuff that took a little bit longer, and I'll kind of explain why that took so long to come where it's at. We're still currently set on the demo. The cameras are free that are in the ground. I just had a meeting with Flock and the team with them on Friday last week, and they're still, hey, the demo's still going. We understand the permits had some issues with CDOT stuff. We're not gonna start making you guys pay for it or cut the demo early. The demo's actually gonna start when all the cameras are in the ground. So we're waiting on 29 of them countywide that are gonna go in the ground. You guys have 3 of them in Wellington, then you'll have a couple more that'll get added that are gonna be on the CDOT right-of-ways, like Highway 1, and then some other sides for that. So the demo hasn't started. To Flock's credit, they've been awesome to work with. They've been eating the cash for over a year now, because we're about a year and a half from when the first camera, which was in Berthoud, went in the ground. So they're definitely sticking by their word, which I think goes to their point of just wanting to fight crime in the community. So these license plate readers work off of photos. So as a car drives by, it takes a photo of the license plate in the vehicle, and then it runs that license plate through what's called CCIC, which is the Colorado Crime Information Center, and then NCIC, which is the National Crime Information Center, to figure out if the associated license plate is tied to an Amber Alert that the state issues, a warrant for the registered owner's arrest, or anyone that's associated with that vehicle, misdemeanor or felony level. If the car is stolen, if it has like a attempt to locate on it, like say we're looking for the car because it was used in a homicide or a robbery, it'll alert it automatically to the deputy. The deputy gets an alert on their computer, and then it says, hey, this car just passed this camera. It's going this direction. And then the deputy just needs to confirm that through our system to make sure that it's still valid. And then they can act upon that depending on what it is. The cameras run off of AI technology. So the company actually teaches the camera to learn what vehicles look like. And the power of that is kind of what I'll talk about in some of your guys' local success cases, is just the ability for law enforcement to be able to search for a car. Unfortunately, about 83%, these are little old stats just because the FBI hasn't updated them, but about 83% of property crimes in the mountain region, so Colorado's included in that, go unsolved because we don't have a license plate, or we don't have a lead, or it's a generic vehicle description. So this company gives the deputy a power to search through the system and look for, let's say we're looking for a white Ford F-150, but all I can see is the side, can figure out where that crime occurred, try and use cameras that are in that location to try and get a license plate of that suspect vehicle. And we'll get into the nitty gritty on why that's important with some of your guys' cases that you had come out of Wellington the last time I came and spoke. The reads are stored for 30 days. So after 30 days, any photo that's on there, whether we use it or not, is taken and wiped out of the system. It's stored in a cloud base that Flock runs and operates it, so law enforcement can't tamper with it at all. That goes away after 30 days. If it's something that we arrest someone out of it, or we get a stolen vehicle and we need to take that photo for court purposes, we download it and that dumps into our internal evidence collection, which then has a different retention, but that's just for court purposes, okay? And we have to add case numbers, a whole bunch of stuff that kind of governs why we're taking that photo and adding that into a case, which is usually based on criminal charges that come out of it, or an active criminal investigation. The states statutorily set limitations on what's called passive surveillance. So anything from security cameras to license plate readers, and their retention per state policy is 3 years. So when we were looking at these, we decided to go with Flock just because we felt their retention basis of 30 days kind of met what the community expects of it, right? The community, I think, has concerns about being tracked and free movements and that kind of things. And that 30 days is kind of that magic sweet spot that after 30 days, it's probably not going to matter whether we find this or not. Like, we want that license plate the next day after a crime spree happens or during that active investigation to try and go from there. Down in Bertha, this is probably one of our biggest success cases. We had a drive-by shooting that occurred in a neighborhood that was a pretty high crime area that we purposely put plate readers in front of it to try and show the community on what does this actually do in the neighborhood, because that's how this company developed, is actually selling to HOAs and people like Walmart, sporting goods stores, that kind of stuff, to curb retail theft. Within about 20 minutes, a suspect was in custody from that drive-by shooting because we had a license plate to work off of. So deputy quickly gets information, makes sure everyone was okay. It was just a home that was damaged. Deputy runs in Flock really quick because he knew what he was looking for from talking with the neighbor's Nest or their Ring camera, and then found that license plate, and the suspect was in custody within 20 minutes of the call for service dropping, which is awesome, right? Whereas before that, it's a generic looking vehicle. I can't go into the details just because it's yet to go to court with it, but generic cars are harder for us to find anything because it could be 1 in a million, right? And in this case, it's a pickup. There's a case in here that kind of talks about the University of Texas and the Texas Christian University did a case study with Flock pretty recently. There's links down at the bottom. If you guys look in your presentation, it might be kind of hard to see, and I can send that to Patty to get out to you guys so you have an actual copy of the case study if you're curious. But basically, that case study says that for every sworn officer, if you have a camera per sworn officer, you're looking at about 9.1 percentage increase in the rate of a clearance. So what that means is that we're able to clear a case. So whether it's, the suspect isn't charged and we can close that case, or they're arrested and prosecuted for that crime, it's about a 9.1% increase per camera that you have. In the study, the smaller the agency or the smaller the town, the bigger the case clearance is. So big metro agencies may not see the case clearance numbers, but like Wellington, Berthoud, those kind of levels will start to see a very big increase because those cameras are usually positioned in a way that it's kind of hard to get into the town without escaping it. Whereas a big city, you might be able to enter on the west side, exit a different way, and not pass the camera. It just kind of depends on how you have stuff set up. You also have the ability to add a 1% on top of that clearance rate for every 50 kilometers that's in between you guys. So to put that in reference, center dead in the county, you guys have about 20 to 30 agencies around us that also have these cameras. So that means that we can use their cameras to try and bolster our investigative leads, which we have in the past. Loveland's used our cameras to solve some of their homicides that they had last year, just finding photos of the car and trying to track where it went after, and then following leads down from there. You guys currently have 3 cameras right now with additional coming for those CDOT right-of-ways, which we'll kind of get into about that. Just to put it in perspective, in this study, you guys have 9 sworn from the sheriff's office. So you got a pretty good clearance rate of if something does happen in that case, especially a property crime, is likely to be solved off of that case. Then you guys have access, the deputies have access to over 250 cameras in Colorado. We just added a ton of more agencies this last week, and the camera in the state of Colorado that we have access to is actually up to 600 now. So a lot of cities are coming on board. Castle Rock currently has like over 400 cameras in their city. And that's just because they were the guinea pig for Flock to basically start a Colorado branch to try and get this in. And then there's about 1,800 nationwide and growing every day as they kind of go in. That map that's on there kind of just shows you those green pins. They might be kind of hard to see, but right after the case study, it's just a general Google view. That's going to be flag maps of every agency that isn't us that's around you guys in the county. I tried to set it center in the county just because Wyoming isn't on board yet of just what you guys can see. So we're touching all the way down to Westminster that's in that 50 kilometer that we could be using their cameras to solve your guys' cases. So say they come up here, do a crime and jet back down to Denver, there's a likelihood we can track it and figure out that it went down there just based on the camera photos if we have a good one. your guys' data from 2023 is between your 3 license plate readers, you had 639 total alerts. So what that means is that's alerting on a vehicle that's passing it for anything from a stolen car to a homicide suspect to a warrant to a missing person, anything of that nature is going on those 3 cameras where you're at. I kind of put a breakdown of what your guys' top performing cameras are on that sheet as well. The 6th Street in Cleveland going southbound has been the top one, and then northbound is the second, and then your guys' 3rd camera up at Washington Ave is about 128 alerts there. The numbers are likely to increase as soon as those cameras go on your guys' CDOT right of ways, because that's obviously the main travel in and outside of your guys' town is through those CDOT right of ways. So expect those numbers to go up. The next page will kind of go into the more of the details, which is you guys had about 11 misdemeanor warrant arrests that the deputies completed in 2023. And take this into account, those cameras weren't for the whole duration of 2023. I think off the top of my head, they went in about March-ish, late last year. So 11 people that misdemeanor warrants were arrested, 3 felony warrants. You guys recovered actually 4 stolen cars in your guys' town that passed those cameras, and then 3 license plates that were reported stolen off of cars as well. So pretty good success rate. As a county as a whole, we're sitting a little over $1 million in recovered value of stolen cars through these ones in the county, excuse me. And we have about 29 active cameras in the county, including Berthoud, Wellington, and then some of those in the city around that we kind of put through there. The next page kind of has a graph that's on there that I kind of showed you guys. That'll kind of show your hotspots. The hotspots are just going to be obviously the 3 cameras that you guys have, and then it kind of breaks down those alerts that's in there. From the percentages, about 51% of them were stolen license plates, and then about a 30% were misdemeanor warrants, and then about 8.3 were basically what's called an attempt to locate, which is that license plate has something on it from minor to hit and run crash up to like, hey, we're looking at this car for a robbery, anything like that, homicide investigations, anything that this car's disappeared out of the jurisdiction that's investigating it. We know the license plate and we need law enforcement to basically keep an eye out for it, that if we spot it and get it stopped, they'll make certain requests, right? Like identify all occupants if stopped on a legal traffic stop or seize this car because it was used in X amount of crime. And then about a 6.4% was stolen cars. Doing kind of the math, there's some that got away, but this is also taking into account like misreads. So if the camera misreads for whatever reason and thinks, you know, the letter 8 is a B isn't a boy on a license plate, that percentage is kind of in there because I can't X that stuff out when pulling these graphs. But at least looking and keeping track of this, any stolen car that's passed, the deputies have made contact with it up here, which is awesome that they have the ability to kind of do that. We'll kind of talk about some of your guys' local successes here in the town under the Flock Successes title. So as used to ID a suspect, this was right out of the get-go as soon as the cameras went in the ground, of a burglary of a local liquor store. So it didn't initially catch the license plate just because it was a temporary tag. So the basically weather when it was snowing kind of obscured it a little bit, but it gave deputies a photo to keep an eye out for. That photo was circulated to the patrol group, and a deputy that was assigned here in Wellington saw that car, pulled the photo up, and is like, yep, that's it, was able to contact it and then identify that suspect in there and kind of take that case and progress it more, where now we know the car that he used and we knew that he was. That suspect actually returned into town and the deputy just happened to see it driving through, is like, that car looks familiar, pulls up the photo and he's like, yep, that's it, because of some identifying uses like stickers, license plate, holders, kind of things like that, that can kind of make it a little bit more identifiable. It's used to ID and track a stolen vehicle that came from town. I helped with this case with one of your guys' deputies that was assigned up here just because the other half of my job is assisting with higher level auto theft investigations through some training that I've been to. So basically a truck gets stolen in town. Victim that had his truck stolen is like, hey, I think this is it on Facebook Marketplace. He was watching it. We were able to look at the Facebook Marketplace, confirm that it was in. I can't go into the details just since that's going into trial as well. But we were able to seize that vehicle off that Facebook lead. And then I assisted in basically identifying the car. So what the suspect did in this case was what's called reventing a car. Basically what happens is they'll take a clean VIN of a similar looking car, rip the stolen VIN off of, and then replace it that's on there. It's pretty sophisticated in the way that they do this. It was an older truck, so it's a little bit easier. But it was a pretty good re-VIN job from the ones that I've seen on higher level cars. The ones that we got to see in training were like Ferraris and expensive vehicles that they're shipping most of the time out of country to sell them. But this truck did get re-VIN. We were able to find the stolen VIN through what's called a confidential VIN, which is hidden VINs that change every year on your guys' cars that you guys will not know that it's there, but it's for us to be able to basically remove a bunch of parts and find that VIN, and that's how we confirm that this indeed was the victim's stolen car. So we got that car back, which is good, and a suspect charged in that case, and it's currently going through the court proceedings, which I think is just a testament. This camera system was used to kind of track that car as it left town, because we obviously knew the license plate of it. And then shortly behind it, before the crime and then leaving with it was the suspect's vehicle, because obviously he got dropped off, stole the truck, and then whoever was with him was following. We were able to identify both of those and get that case closed. Whereas if that thing just took off, we're looking at an average right now in the state of about 60 days the time your car gets stolen to when it gets recovered. And a lot of times it's just because it's dumped. In this case, it could have been sold 3, 4, 5 times because no one would have known, right? If you take this to the DMV or call us and the deputy doesn't know what he's looking for, it's really easy to look at that VIN and be like, this isn't tampered. Yep, this matches this make, year, model, all the things like that. And then give them the proper paperwork to go get that car re-registered. And then it might be like years down the road by the time you recover that. Next case was a traffic stop was attempted on a vehicle with a stolen license plate. The driver knew that he had warrants, fled to Wyoming. Cheyenne actually helped recover that car for us, and then we identified the driver and a warrant was issued. So the driver fled. Obviously, our goal is to not create public safety issues, so it was made the decision to not pursue that suspect as he left just due to time of day and stuff like that, and then we identified him, 1, through the cameras, obviously alerting us that he was in the town, and then 2, with working with our regional partners across the state to get him identified and that car seized. Then this one, a man was contacted through this. You guys are going to see a name in there from a warrant. That's public info, so that's why that's in there, because he's already been arrested on these. But it was a very big percentage of what he was hitting on, because deputy knew this felon was coming up here that had warrants for his arrest to visit family, a friend, something like that. Deputies have the ability to enter custom license plates into this system to alert, no different than if it was stolen, to say, hey, this guy is now driving mom's car, but we know he has, in this case, 11 warrants for his arrest. So deputies were able to do that. It enters town. They make a traffic stop. He ended up running on foot, but was apprehended. And then he had 3 felony warrants for his arrest and 7 misdemeanor warrants for his arrest. I think even though those are like small in the totality of it, that's a car that we got back to a citizen in the town. People that obviously are skipping court dates. In this case, this guy did have a weapons charge warrant for his arrest, is getting those people back into court that are skipping out on their court dates, and hopefully getting their court cases to move along, ensuring that we're giving those victims of those cases, even though they're not our own, the ability for them to see their time in court and go from there. We'll kind of talk about what's coming up for the year. So obviously I met with the flock team on Friday. Those permits have been submitted to CDOT. CDOT took about a 6-month hiatus from their permitting process just to try and get it buttoned up. To the credit, they worked with the Colorado State Patrol and the Auto Theft Bureau that I help run task forces with part-time to create basically a more robust system where if we're on a demo or we decide that, you know, hey, the sheriff's office is going to pay for, let's say, 40 cameras and put these things countywide, that we're not putting a camera one place and then a city comes in and puts it on the other side of the street. And then now we're just, you know, we're paying for each other. Like, we might as well use it. We have access to each other's. That just doesn't make sense. So the whole permit process was to basically go statewide, that we could look at where everyone's cameras were, and if a new jurisdiction wanted new cameras in and we're close to the CDOT right of ways, that they know where that's at, and then CDOT kind of knows where that's at as well, and who's responsible for it if it gets hit in a car crash or something like that, along those nature. Once these go in the ground, that'll start that 60-day period where we'll come again before you guys, before that ends, and we'll kind of talk about where we're at. Again, there's no obligation from the company to continue with this, but we'll bring the successes again with the new cameras for you guys to come at the end and we can make some decisions or have conversations. Again, there's no obligation. Flock is very aware that, you know, we want you guys to see the full power of this because we ran a countywide demo and they didn't want to exclude any jurisdiction or any town or any city in there. They just wanted it to see a full force of, hey, if you had all these cameras, here's what the product is. If you guys rip them out and you want to pay for one or none, then we'll talk to you guys in 5 years or whenever it is, right? So very good to work with. Those permits have been submitted. It takes about 2 to 3 months to get through their permitting process roughly, just due to the influx of permits they now have. So we're looking at about July-ish is what they estimated for those to go in the ground. Flock has a robust technician group in the state of Colorado now, so they're estimating that once that permits gets approved, we're looking at about a week, if that, of the cameras in the ground and operational for you guys. So thanks for being here and helping with this and kind of going along with us as we kind of reach some really big roadblocks with those permittings getting stopped, because I think those CDOT cameras are really going to kind of show the full power of this, since that's kind of your guys' ingress and egress out of the town as well. So that's kind of the it of the presentation for it. If you guys have questions about the cameras, I'm happy to answer them. Again, I'm obviously don't work for Flock. I don't get a commission for them. My investment in it was just trying to find technology that we can use to solve crimes in our area and hopefully get some of these stolen cars back that are rampant, especially with the state last year becoming number one. We're now number 2 nationwide for auto theft. So obviously the goal is to try and recover these cars as fast as we can and hopefully make someone whole, since that can be a pretty big dent in someone's life and they can't get to work. But I'm happy to answer any questions if you guys have it.
Thank you. Any questions from Trustee Moore?
When you presented before on this, did you talk about pricing for the service at all? Or is there information? Can you enlighten me,
Yep.
please?
So each camera last year was about $2,500. They went up $500 just due to cost increases of materials. So it's about $3,000 per plate reader. So what that covers is the actual camera, the solar panel that's on it, the cellular that's in it. So it's not hooked up to a public utility like other companies. It all runs independently. So you can slap it in the ground, not have to tap into power or figure out whose traffic signal this is and try and hotwire it in like some other companies. So $3,000 covers the camera, the solar panel, the pole that it's on, which is crash rated and state approved, the cloud service that the deputies use, so the software that we use to get the alerts on our computer and do searches, and then also the technicians. So the technicians are on call 24/7. That camera goes down, they'll come out and replace it for free. We actually just had one where the screws stripped out of the one up on Washington and the camera was spinning around because the solar panel was basically acting as a sail. And Flock's tech company caught it right away, emailed them because a deputy noticed it, called me, and they're like, hey, we already know this, a tech's coming to replace it the next day. So that's already been fixed. And I think that roughly it's a good price for what you get. Put that in perspective, another brand, I obviously won't name them, but just their camera alone is about $46,000 just for the cameras, not including the mounting, not including the software, because this company doesn't use cloud-based storage. Then the agency would have to pay to store this data somehow and run our own program. All this stuff is internally kept with Flock and kind of helps keep costs a little bit lower since there's such a large company that kind of store nationwide for everyone. So it went up, and again, that's $3,000 per camera. Per year. Yep, per year. Yep, and that just covers the replacement and everything like that.
And you said we have 3 now and we're going to get 9 more?
Used
Or how many more?
2 more. Yeah.
Oh, that's it.
There's 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just want to get my numbers correct. Thank you.
Yeah, it should be 2 to 3. I got to look at the map because we had to adjust some stuff with like a water pipeline that was going through that the town needed in there, but we'll get those correct numbers to you. But it should be 2 to 3 more is what we're roughly waiting on. Well, countywide, it's about 29 of them that we're waiting on permitting processes. So you guys will see about 2 to 3 of those off of it that are on your guys' CDOT right away. So like Highway 1, the exit off I-25, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and then to clarify, there'd be, once we get the final cameras, then there's a 60-day period. Final camera should be in July, so we're looking like October-ish.
Correct. Yep, they said roughly October, but it sounds like they're at least in works. Obviously, they got to get this approved. It sounds like they're gonna maybe extend that even further because they think if it shows October right now, they obviously don't want, if any hiccups, it's a new process, they might extend that a little bit further and then let that trial go a little bit longer just to make sure that we're getting the full input of it. And again, there's no obligation, right? If you guys decide as a board that, hey, we can't afford this right now, the company doesn't even charge us to take those cameras out of the ground. There's cities, like the city of Boulder had a demo, said, hey, we don't really know if we can afford this right now. Flock ripped all theirs out of the ground, and the next year that they came back, they're like, hey, we found the money through some traffic grants, that kind of stuff, and we're willing to set aside money for it. They came back and reinstalled all 40 of them that they ordered, so they even added 10 more onto it. So Flock's very open about it, and the whole goal of like putting all these cameras countywide was just so you can see the power of, if we get up to this number, that's where we're at, but there's been no pressure from the sales team to be like, you guys got to buy all these. They're very much, nope, just use them to inform communities if they want to privately purchase this, because neighborhoods can purchase these for their HOAs. Like, let's say Ridley's Market owns their parking lot, they can purchase it for their parking lot. There's businesses around like Lowe's and Loveland purchased it with their retail theft. Shields in Johnstown has a pretty big amount on their parking lot to help curb their retail theft. So that power is also there, where the company's paying for those cameras, but then you and your community get the resource of that, as we would get auto alerted, no different than if the county or the town or whoever is paying for that camera themselves. So that's kind of the power of it, is get both sides, right? The private side and the law enforcement side, whereas other companies don't sell to private entities, so you're not seeing any of those camera statuses off of it.
Thank you. Trustee Daly?
A couple comments and then questions. My first comment, and I have to just say this, is I always have an inherent concern about cameras watching people, for no need most of the time, right? Largest percentage is people who don't need to be watched, right? So I have to declare that. But at the same time, if there was an Amber Alert for my kid, I would want every person's phone trying to find my kid. So I see both sides of that. But I do have to state that, because that's an inherent concern. I think that will come up in our community as a question when we're considering actually investing in this, of spending money to watch people. And I'm not saying that's how it works and that's what it is. That might be a perception. So I do want to acknowledge that. The other piece is, from the map I'm seeing, we're the northmost in Colorado, all Flock cameras. And then obviously this is going to help close crime rates. So, which essentially makes our crime rate higher, which is good though, because we're catching bad guys. I get that. But my question is, for every one of these plates, for example, that's been flagged for whatever reason that happens to be traveling through Wellington, when that happens and it's alerted to Wellington, are each one of those crimes then tagged to our town, increasing our crime rates?
So the only thing that will get tagged is like if we take action on it. And so if it
Okay.
alerts and we can't find that car, or we get behind that car and we're like, oh, camera misread it,
Mhm.
and that's the incorrect plate,
Yeah.
we just mark it in the system and it goes away.
Yeah.
Obviously, if we take action on it and the suspect's arrested or a crime is charged within your guys' geographical boundary,
Yeah.
that would change, right? But it's just like any other statistic. I use this phrase a lot when teaching and instructing at our post academy, is that stats can kind of be skewed one way or the other on however you want to use them.
Yeah.
But the way I tell people to look at stats is that's just an opportunity for us to look a little bit closer, right? So if that number is a little bit higher, then it's like, okay, let's break it down, because the way our system at least works is I can go into that system and break it down, and I can see each crime or what it is. And if it's traffic stops or other stuff,
Yeah.
you can kind of see that percentage of it. So there is the possibility that that could increase it. But the only time that's going to increase is anything that's reportable to like the federal government, off of like NIBR's entries, which is just a fancy term for the system that our records department uses to charge certain crimes. So like person crimes, that kind of stuff, or certain burglaries, certain stuff is not reportable, so it wouldn't affect it. It just kind of depends on what is coming through. If it's a warrant arrest, it'll just pop up as warrant arrest that was at this location. So the blotter will get a little bit heavy, if that makes sense, the one that's on our website.
Right.
But you have the ability to kind of go in there and actually like click on it and be like, what actually this is, and then it breaks that down further.
Right. So I guess my concern associated with that is if there's like a call, for example, associated with everything that's flagged by Flock as these kind of scenarios.
Yep.
And then we're contributing that to our expenses for our contract associated with, for the volume that we're seeing. It's not necessarily just a cost associated with the cameras themselves, but essentially a higher crime calls, right? I'm using all the wrong words, so I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Calls and crime, somewhere in there. So higher calls, therefore higher volume, therefore our contractual rate for services through Larimer County potentially would increase as well. I mean, again, all good things catching bad guys. But I'm just thinking as us as the entry point of two states essentially coming into Colorado, and then each one of those could potentially be associated with or attributed to our contract with Larimer County. That just raises a red flag of, is that our share to pay for from the contractual for Larimer County Sheriff's Office? And I don't know how that all actually plays out, but this is the scenario in my head that I'm concerned about. So
Yeah.
maybe if and when we are considering our contract, that we're looking at the calls and then those associated with Flock, and then maybe more so determine like these crimes are not occurring in Wellington. They're just like noticed coming through Wellington. Are those things that really should impact our contracts and the costs that we pay for Larimer County Sheriff Office? So just a concern I have out there, some concerns. Yeah, please tell me if I'm wrong. I don't know, Jerry.
Quite honestly, I don't think that this is gonna raise our stats
Okay.
that high. I just checked our flock cameras, and the last hit that we had on a camera in Wellington was a day ago.
Okay.
So when we start adding 3 more cameras, I just don't think that we're gonna see, 25, recovered stolen vehicles each day and,
Right.
and pursuit after pursuit after pursuit. I just don't see that happening.
Okay.
I think we'll see some better statistics, just more wanted people
Yeah.
being arrested and those types of things. But honestly, I just don't see it making that huge of a
Okay.
an impact.
Yeah.
That holy smokes, yeah, we got to raise your rates because we're getting killed out there.
Right.
With responding to all these alerts.
Right.
Doesn't it make sense?
Yeah. I just don't want Flock to work so good that they're like, oh my gosh, Wellington's so
For sure.
dangerous. Right. Just because we just happen to be along the interstate and everybody coming through. Yeah. So, okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I can tell you from like working obviously with Berthoud in there and the position that I'm in is working at their cameras. They've decided to pay for them once we're done with this demo as a town.
Mhm.
And a lot of those stats is that was one of their concerns is obviously, is this going to raise the rate? And at least those conversations that we had then obviously, don't take me for that this is the final agreement because I'm obviously not the sheriff, right? But a lot of that stuff is pulled out where we're like, this is a tool that we use that you guys are willing to pay for down there because they see the success in it.
Yeah.
But we're not using it to like affect our contract, right? When we had the signing of their last one, the cameras are in the ground. We just basically went in with my sergeant, pulled all the stats, and then I took everything out. I mean, I took stuff like, the deputies are logging an extra patrol in a neighborhood that's crime ridden, like all that got taken out as well. And we're just using generated calls for service or like traffic crashes and that kind of stuff. So
Okay.
at least from being involved in contracts, I've been assigned to a town for about 5 years since 2019. It's probably 6 years or getting close to it now. We've kind of taken that stuff out because that's obviously not something that we want to put that burden on, right? Especially if we're like, hey, go out there and get in this neighborhood and the deputies are logging like 20, 30 extra patrols a night. Like that's not something the town should have to pay for, if that makes sense. So we kind of looked at the cameras along the same way. To address your first question, I think that's everyone's biggest
Yeah.
concern, right? Is they don't want this to be Big Brother. Again, this was just a tool that we kind of used to say, hey, can this help affect change in our community? And this was honestly the best one that had that lower retention rate, which I think is important. Flock's also a very big community-oriented company to where if a citizen calls in and wants to see the stats that are coming from the cameras, they'll release them right away because they own that data. They have PR people that are assigned to them that if you guys choose to go with it, down the road, whenever, that will work with you guys in the town or as a board to say, hey, if those numbers start growing as far as crime rates and people kind of show some concern, they'll send a PIO up here, a press information officer, to work with you guys to say, hey, let's get out in front of this, and they'll pay for that out of their pocket of their company to put ads in the newspaper, to put stuff on social media, kind of giving facts out there to what these cameras are actually doing. We also have a robust training effort in the sheriff's office as far as what this system can be used for. It's obviously free text when we go to search it, but we have a written a policy that it has to be a case number and incident number. So a deputy can't just go in and start searching and put suspicious car, because that's not enough to track back, like, why were you searching for a white Chevy Cruze in this system? And then it's auditable by anyone that's an admin, which is myself, about 4 others, the sheriff, the undersheriff, and then our internal affairs bureau as well. So all that stuff is trackable. Our IA looks at that sheet that comes out and looks at why our deputy's doing it. And if they're putting something that's incorrect or there's a weird feeling about it, we're going in and we're addressing that through by talking to that deputy and saying, hey, this isn't okay. There's state laws covering this stuff. And then deputies can't even get access to the system without going through a 3-hour training on this, where we cover state law, current Supreme Court case law, which kind of governs what law enforcement does around these. And obviously, as that changes, because as cameras become more popular and technology becomes a thing, just like cell phones were an issue in law enforcement, as far as, you know, when I first started, we could just take your phone and dump all the data with it, because they're like, it's no different than a car. It can move and go away. But now they're looking at a cell phone as the same aspect as they would your home, as far as warrants and stuff like that, to where a warrant needs to apply and that bar is really high. So I anticipate this stuff changing as we go along, and then we'll kind of address our policies and our training as we kind of go through there. But they get current up-to-date case law on this stuff. And at least currently, the Supreme Court has decided that these cameras are no different than Joe Blow standing there taking a photo of your license plate. There's kind of no privacy aspect, but there's definitely a concern on that side of it with our citizens and the people that, you know, we police, is the sheriff's office, the police departments, anyone that's in law enforcement. Like, we're a part of the community and the community is a part of us, right? We want what's out of our agency, of what our community expects from us. So if that kind of changes, then we'll kind of curb that, and we'll kind of change the way that we're doing things as far as that aspects of it. But I think that that's definitely a valid concern. And, you know, the sheriff's office honestly has no interest in the free movement of the people that we police. We obviously have a very vested interest in trying to solve these crimes and get people their stolen cars back, and find missing people or wanted subjects and get those cases moving along.
Absolutely.
So I think you can kind of rest assured that we're doing that, but I think that that's obviously the job of the community, is have those tough conversations, and that's something that we're more than happy to talk to anyone about as our training program. Our policy is available for people to request to see it, and we're even going through policy revisions right now, trying to bolster that policy to kind of go around what the community expects and what other jurisdictions around us are going in, because we're so closely in there that these cameras are obviously going to affect more than people that just live in the town that's in there, to kind of address those concerns and go from there. But I think that, you know, that is something that we definitely want to see, is that people coming forward and say, hey, I have this concern about it. You know, the thing that I don't want, especially as a cop in the community that I serve, is I don't want the public to be like, we trust him, right? You need that, like, back and forth, right? Where we can go to the community and say, hey, some of this stuff, like, you know, large parties going on at CSU aren't going to be tolerated. Like, this isn't what we expect from you guys. We would want the community to come to us and say, hey, we have some concerns about this technology, and have that open and conversation, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
What other questions do you have?
I can think about that. You guys are welcome to, obviously the Sergeant Sherry has my contact info. Patti has it as well. Please reach out to me. If you guys have questions, send me an email. I'm happy to talk to you on the phone. Whatever comes up, I'm happy to answer this stuff with it. I'm not an expert in this by any means. I just happen to be the one that spearheaded in the town, and then it kind of blew up into a county-wide thing, and kind of caught on like wildfire with the states and stuff like that. So I'm happy to talk about it for whatever you guys have, but anything that you guys have questions, even if it's down the road, please contact me, and I'm happy to address those. I'm sure Sergeant Cherry's happy to address anything too, but if something comes up down the road and you're like, dang it, this popped into my head, please shoot me an email or call me or text me. Patty's got my contact info, and you guys are more than welcome to give me a call, and I'm happy to answer it, right? Just because I am assigned out of Bertha doesn't mean that I don't find myself up here from time to time. Sergeant Sherry's lucky that he's not my boss, because sometimes I'm up here more than a little often just trying to help out, and I think he'd have no hair left if that was there, but I'm happy to answer any questions as we kind of go through this for you guys, and kind of go through this project as we go along. Again, it's just a demo, right? So anything that you guys have questions, is we're on this demo, and we may decide as an agency that, hey, you know, this isn't the way we want to go, and kind of address it later down the road. It just all kind of depends. And right now we're kind of just in the fact finding stages of it.
If you have any questions, email them to me. If I don't have the answer, I'll certainly reach out to Zach. Perfect. And then trustee TT had a comment?
So I was stressful about the privacy thing last year when this had come and been presented to us. So I did go online and did some additional looking and had figured out that the actual image that's taken of the vehicle can't view who's actually driving the vehicle. It views specifics in its entirety. That was one of the reasons I loved this system, was because of the fact that it still appreciated the privacy of everyone in the community. And my generalized idea is if, you know, if you want to be worried about someone tracking your license plate, don't commit a crime in a vehicle that you're going to be driving around to have your license plate tracked. That was one thing I was really grateful for when I had looked at this. That, and the other idea is a 9.1% increase of cleared cases. So, and one of those things we're constantly asking for is how can we help support LCSO more? We have denied adding additional officers at this time, not because we don't love you, but because the budget is not at where it needs to be right now. 35 cameras is about $107,000, which is what we pay one of our LCSO staff. So 9.1% clearance of case per camera. That seems to be a pretty well-rounded idea of how do we save the residents money, but also make sure that we're doing our due diligence and protecting them as well. So I love the system. I like the fact that it's cloud-based. I did some reading on it last year, so it definitely was beneficial to be able to go in, and their website is completely accessible and like understandable, and not LCSO form, but in resident form, which was a kudos to the company that actually builds this system. So I'm grateful for the additional information, and I'm looking forward to seeing what those additional cameras, if approved, might actually produce for people coming in and out of town.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Next, we will introduce some new staff members. And then I will introduce Nick, and then Megan will introduce Zach for us. So first of all, Zach, Nick. Oh, did I say Zach?
Yeah.
What am I doing? So as you guys know, he's served for the last 2 years on the finance committee, and he comes to us with the understanding of our current finances, where we've been, where we're going, and he is working diligently to learn up the new system and get those things rocking and rolling. Nick is a Wellington resident, and he's held multiple leadership positions throughout his career, and he's passionate about leadership and the community engagement. In 2022, Nick was selected as Northern Colorado's under 40, 40s under 40 awarded that, and then the Chamber of Commerce's Above and Beyond Award. So he is a successful leader, a driven individual, and he started with the town on April 29th, and been working closely with Don Rhodes and the leadership team to get up to speed on all the things there, and his appointment to the town treasurer is later on in the agenda. So everybody welcome Nick.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. And then Megan will introduce Zach.
Thanks so much. I'm excited to be up here this evening. Well overdue to introduce our new 4-month new water treatment plant superintendent, Zach Gilbert. Zach comes to us with probably 15 years water wastewater, almost 20, yeah, water wastewater experience. He was last at South Adams County Water District for a handful of years. He has served tenure at several of our northern Colorado neighbors, including the town of Berthoud, Fort Collins-Loveland Water District, City of Fort Collins. And he has hit the ground running and learning diving in right as we were getting into all the training and the intensity of wrapping up this construction of the new facility. So he's been instrumental in getting his team all trained up, including himself, for that matter, and has really built a great leadership at the facility out there and brings a ton of experience, and we're really proud to have him. So. Wanna say anything else in your path?
Just so you all know, 8545 3rd Street was the house I grew up in 1980 to 1987. My dad worked for the town back then, so proud to be here. I think small communities deserve talent, so that's why I'm here, and you've all been great so far, and the water quality will improve greatly with our new plant. So also, please come out and check it out anytime. We love to give tours, and we'd love to have any of you come out, ask questions. Very informal, but it's informative. So glad to be here. Thanks.
Thanks, Zach.
I actually did want to highlight that he recently dug up his Stone Elementary School class picture. So very much a local original. So
Cool. Very cool.
thank you.
Welcome to the team. Thank you. All right, Mr. Clerk, will you please read the title for the items on the consent agenda?
F1, April 23, 2024 regular meeting minutes. F2, resolution number 19, 2024, a resolution of the town of Wellington, Colorado, considering a contract for asphalt construction services. F3, resolution number 20-2024, a resolution of the town of Wellington, Colorado, considering a contract for concrete construction services. F4, resolution number 21-2024, resolution of the town of Wellington, Colorado, establishing liaisons to the town's boards, commissions, and councils.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion on the consent agenda?
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Mr. Clerk, make it a roll call, please.
Trustee Cannon.
See who?
You.
Trustee Cannon.
I'm here. Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mason.
Yes.
Trustee Teets.
Yes.
Trustee Moyer.
Yes.
Trustee Wiegand.
Yes.
Trustee Daly.
Yes.
Mayor Shosse.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously and the consent agenda is approved.
thank you. At this time, we'll take a brief 5-minute recess. 5-minute recess.
Oh, we got Billy.
Absolutely. I can't hit the broadside of a barn trying to swing at a golf ball.
I now call the regular meeting of Wellington Board of Trustees back in session, time being 8:19 PM. Mr. Clerk, make it a roll call, please.
Trustee Daly.
Present.
Trustee Moyer.
Here.
Trustee Cannon.
Here.
Trustee Wiegand.
Here.
Trustee Teets.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mason.
Here.
Mayor Shosse.
Here.
Thank you. We still have a quorum.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, will you please read the title for item G1?
Endorsement of Ed Cannon trustee as nominee for the Colorado Municipal League Executive Board.
Thank you, sir. So this item is for consideration for the board to endorse trustee Ed Cannon as a nominee for the Colorado Municipal League's Executive Board. Are there any deliberations on this item?
I think it's a great idea. It gets the name for Wellington out there. It's campaigning's a part of it. We'll have Wellington broadcasted to the entire CML conference. I think it's a fantastic idea, and I think Ed is incredibly qualified and would serve on behalf of Wellington well.
Ed, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Just quickly, I've been intimately involved with the Colorado Municipal League for more than 7 years, serving on policy committees. Of course, you attending all the events, special work sessions, events with the governor. The Colorado Municipal League is an organization. It's the only organization that's preserving municipal rights within Colorado. As Kevin Bommer mentioned earlier about, the legislature will pass laws, Sometimes it's for special interest or whatever, and it has different interest and different effects, but how it affects municipalities is extremely important. And what CML does is they evaluate, that impact, not just for statutory towns, but home rule towns as well. And determine, are we placing an undue burden on municipalities, like an unfunded mandate that says you will do this? Well, suddenly municipalities have to come up with money to do this. Are we putting restrictions on there that limits states' rights and states' authority to self-rule for home rule communities, and even statutory towns, that there's limitations and restrictions which can negatively impact communities or restrict their authority. And for me, municipal government is there to serve the needs of the local community, no matter where you are in Colorado. And having an organization that actively lobbies and actively tracks every piece of legislation which goes through, Denver, is extremely important to me, and it's something I'm very avid about and I care deeply about. My association with the Colorado Municipal League, my knowledge of state statutes, and having served it both in a management position and also now as a trustee, I think I could do great service to the board as a member, but I also think that it will do wonderful things for Wellington as well. As Rebecca mentioned, it does put Wellington kind of on the map, that we're just not a small rural town. We're a medium-sized, and this is the category that we're applying for. We're a medium-sized municipality in Colorado, and there's only two other categories above us: large and the big mega cities like Fort Collins and Denver and so forth. Being a member of that board, you're sitting at the board with some of the best, most intelligent, experienced municipal leaders, attorneys in the state, and you have access to information and ideas and finding out what other communities are doing and doing right. And I would love to have that opportunity to represent Wellington, to serve on this very important committee, which is solely responsible for ensuring that municipal rights are protected. And I didn't apply, I missed the deadline a couple of years ago when I was in a small town. And I regretted the fact that I missed that opportunity. I just didn't see it so late. But at the CML annual convention in Loveland is when they'll have a vote on this. And this is no guarantee that I'd be elected, but it does put my name on the ballot. But if I am elected, I would step down from the policy committee, and I would also recommend that perhaps Trustee Teets step in to fill my position on that policy committee. I think she'd do a great job. I don't know of many people who fight as passionately as you do. And but it also would give you exposure to that kind of understanding of how municipal government can operate. So again, I appreciate and I would request your support and recommendation for this nomination. And I hope to be selected and serve Wellington and serve Colorado well.
Thank you, Ed. Are there any comments from the public on this item? No. Any further questions or direction from the board on this item? Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to approve the nomination of Ed Cannon to be on the ballot for the CML Executive Board.
I second.
Mr. Clerk, may I get a roll call, please?
Trustee Moyer,
Yes.
Trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
Trustee Teets,
Yes.
Trustee Cannon,
Yes.
Trustee Daly,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mason,
Yes.
Mayor Shosse.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously and the item is approved.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, will you please read the title for item G2?
Resolution number 22-2024, resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Wellington appointing a town treasurer.
Perfect. And then
I'm happy to present this on Ms. Garcia's behalf if you like, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, please, Mr. Clerk.
Just one moment. Okay, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Board of Trustees. I'm Ethan Moose, Town Clerk. Pleasure to be with you this evening. Going to present this item on behalf of Ms. Garcia. This is a resolution that in effect appoints a new town treasurer from the currently interim appointed treasurer Don Rhodes to the newly hired Mr. Nick David. As you've all met and have heard, he comes with great accolades and resume. There's been an extensive process to interview and select the future finance director and town treasurer. And at this point, I would just like to invite Mr. David to make a few comments and introduce himself to you in greater detail.
Thank you. Hello. So yes, my name's Nick David. I'm a Wellington resident for the last 7.5 years. I have a extensive background in financial services and have served on the finance committee for the town for the last 2 years. I'm very passionate about Wellington. I've been involved with many organizations here in town, and I am very excited for this opportunity to serve our community. I know that this is going to be a steep learning curve. I'm up for the challenge, and I thank you all for the opportunity to serve as the treasurer and assist you in making decisions for our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any deliberations from the board on this item? No? Okay. Are there any comments from the public? Any further questions or direction from the board on this item? Do I hear a motion on this item?
I move to approve resolution number 22-2024, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Wellington appointing a town treasurer.
I second.
Mr. Clerk, may I get a roll call, please?
Trustee Cannon,
Yes.
Trustee Teets,
Yes.
Trustee Moyer,
Yes.
Trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
Trustee Daly,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mason,
Yes.
Mayor Shosse.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously and the resolution is approved.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. All right, at this point, we'll go on to reports. Are there any reports from you, Mr. Dan Sapienza?
We have a proposed executive session coming up at the end of this meeting, so I'll make this short. The Colorado General Assembly recently wrapped up their regular session of 2024, and there are not as many bills that affect municipalities as there have been in years past, but that doesn't mean there's not a lot of bills that affect municipalities. So I would recommend keeping an eye out for a Colorado Municipal League legislative wrap-up webinar. I believe it's next week or the week after. It is they do a fantastic job. If you want to see what's happening, I'll be watching that, and we'll provide more information as we have it. There's a number of bills out there that haven't yet been signed, so it's not even yet quite time to say what the new laws are or not. But we'll be in touch on all of the new things that'll be affecting you.
Thank you. Are there any board reports? Trustee Moore.
Mayor and trustees, I wanted to bring something to the table for your consideration. As we listen to the presentations and new staff introductions like we've had tonight, and as we work through these packets on a regular basis, I feel that we are missing a vital piece. We have many strengths between us, but none of us has the education, background, experience, and training that our staff do. I would like to formally request that we make an addition back to our agenda of items to include the recommendations of the appropriate staff and their supporting evidence, their why. I believe that not asking for this is a missed opportunity, and that including this information on a regular basis will only strengthen our decision-making.
All in favor? No, just guidance, just a direction. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Trustee Wiegand, any report?
No report.
Trustee Daly.
We did a proclamation earlier, but in case anybody Nobody's online. And I wanted to know Kiwanis and Pros and Parks and Rec are all combining forces on Saturday for Kids to Park Day and also the fishing derby. So it's that Saturday. Fishing derby starts at 7 a.m. They stock the ponds. So you don't even have to have a fishing pole or bait. You just show up and they give you all the things. They'll even clean your fish for you. So 7 a.m. for that. Kids to Park Day starts at 8. They'll have inflatables, games, all the fun things out there from Parks and Rec. I encourage all of us to attend. It's really important to support these groups and Kiwanis as well. And just make sure that we are living our proclamations of enjoying the outdoors and enjoying our parks. It's at Wellville Park. Just in case anybody was concerned, that's where the ponds are. Wellville, east side, right by the underpass. But I hope to see you guys there on Saturday. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Just one quick thing. I did have the opportunity with Trustee Cannon to go down and visit NOCO Humane and the shelter down there. Really extensive facility they've got down there, and just wanted to point out that we've got a number of residents that have kind of come together and formed a task force as far as animal control and our related ordinances as far as that goes. So we're certainly looking to take recommendation as far as direction on those types of things. And I think we should be having something come to the board here probably within the next month or two as far as that goes. So, but it was great to visit that facility, and appreciate you coming down as well, Trustee Cannon. So,
Thank you. Any reports from you, Trustee Cannon?
No reports, but I will piggyback on what Mayor Pro Tem Mason mentioned. We thought that was a great facility, wonderful tour, about an hour and a half. I have cat and dog allergies, so I was getting a little congested. But you know, I was thoroughly impressed with, and I've seen a number of animal shelters in multiple states, and I was extremely impressed with the quality of the facilities, the professionalism of the staff, the dedication, and all. And I know it's, you know, there's been some discussion about, you know, wanting to do things differently and so forth like that, but I was very impressed, and I feel confident that they would be serving the needs of our community under the existing contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Teets, in your report.
I do. I won't speak much on it because I'm waiting for this to come back to us once we get the executive report from all the legislation wrapping up. One of them that was a key topic to me was the Bill 24-131 that removed a citizen's ability to open or conceal carry a firearm in a municipal building. That's something that I would definitely want to look forward on. I know we have the availability to, as a town, make the choice on if we do want to continue to allow something like that or disallow it. I am in complete support that if anyone's went through the generalized idea of applied for a concealed carry permit, that we should not remove someone's right and ability to be able to carry. So this is something that I feel really strongly about and would like to see come back to us to address if the board is in support of it. Not now, but I suspect in June or July.
Yep, on the radar. Perfect.
Thank you.
Um,
Mr. Mayor, since Patti was not here right now, can I give part of her report?
Yes, you may.
I skipped over that part, and it just occurred to me as the board was discussing this. Actually, it came up as Mayor Pro Tem Mason was speaking. I know he sits on the Opioid Abatement Council for Larimer County. One item that's come to the town's attention is the settlement for the opioid funds largely goes to the regional opioid abatement program. That's so that as a region, those funds can be used for a variety of things that can't be done by individual municipalities. However, by the town signing on to the settlement agreement, a certain amount of funds do come to the town. It's based on population and a number of different factors. And when the town signed on to the opioid settlement, that percentage was known to be rather small. As it turns out, the town has received about $6,000 as part of this opioid settlement. The region has received a large amount, but those dollars need to be spent on a certain list of things. At this point, the town doesn't have a program set up to handle any sort of opioid abatement programs internally. And there's been a request by the region for the town to provide its funds to the region. This can be undone at a future date, and this is something that a couple of municipalities in the area are doing. So what this is every year, a certain amount of funds would come in, they would come to the town, and instead of the town trying to set up its own program, they would just add to the kitty of the things being done regionally. And of course, Mayor Pro Tem Mason sits on that council, so the town always has input on how those funds are used. This is not something for decision now, but Ms. Garcia wanted to raise this topic with the board, make you aware of this, and it probably something that we'll bring back for discussion, or perhaps on the consent agenda with a kind of more lengthy discussion of what this means at the next meeting. So just wanted to give you an update on that, and if you have any questions, I might be able to answer them.
Is there an option, like Harvest Farm, I assume, has some kind of programming there to assist with this type of detox, and would it be an option to provide our funds to them?
Mayor Pro Tem, do you have an answer to that since you do sit on that council? Or-
I think that would be an opportunity. I'm not sure if that would require an MOU with Harvest Farm as far as that goes. What I can tell you is, and I think in my estimation, I would encourage the board to send those funds back to the council to be used region-wide. The reason why I say that is because many of those funds are used not only between LCSO's co-responder unit, but also to many other projects throughout the region. Harvest Farm is actually one of those. We gave them, I think, about $400,000 just about a week ago, and another about $100,000 just about a month before that. But I do believe that most of the programs that all of these are generally very high dollar grants and that sort of thing, $100,000 or greater typically. So I would consider, $6,000 to be kind of a drop in the bucket. And I would suggest that, again, I think the Opioid Abatement Council already has the infrastructure to be able to distribute all these things out. I think they do. I think we do a pretty good job at making sure that those get spent wisely. So I would encourage the board to probably send them back, but of course that's for a decision at a future date.
And all of the funds that are expended, whether at the regional level or at a municipal level or at the county level, there's a good amount of reporting and other kind of infrastructure involved with that. So the ability of the town to spend $6,000 comes with staff time to report on that, whereas the Opioid Regional Council has kind of a broader view of what's needed, and as he said, the ability to do that. But a great question. And
That is a good question. Before I retired, I was the town manager in Fraser, Colorado, and which is in Grand County. And being a town of roughly 3,500 people, 1,800 people, I was thinking of another town. The amount of money that would have come to Fraser was about $1,600 a year, which is not enough money to do anything with. It's not enough to take staff time. Even the reporting functions for that $16,000 was pretty intensive for the amount of staff and the amount of reports and when they have to make the reports. And the Board of Trustees there in Fraser elected to sign that agreement, so just donate those funds to the regional or to Grand County, who had the resources, who had the infrastructure, and they had the staff, the application process. They had, everything in place to distribute those within the county. And I know mental health is extremely important, and the opioid abatement helps address some of those issues. But I would also be in favor of simply returning those back to the regional office, who is trained and has the staff to be able to distribute those funds as they see fit.
You had me at reporting, just saying.
Thank you. Thank you.
okay, I'll let Ms. Garcia know. I think this will come back at the next meeting.
Appreciate it. Mr. Clerk, will you please read the title for item I-1?
Did you finish with all of your board reports, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor? Okay, understood.
I have no report, sorry.
Understood. I1, conferences with an attorney, I1, executive session conferences with an attorney for the town pursuant to 24-6-4024B CRS for the purpose of receiving legal advice relative to pending litigation related to the appeal of a site plan approval. The executive session will not be recorded and an attorney certification will be provided as required by CRS 24-6-4022 D5 2B. The discussions in the executive session constitute privileged attorney-client communications.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to enter executive session?
So move.
I'll second.
Mr. Clerk, make it a roll call, please.
Trustee Cannon,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mason,
Yes.
Trustee Daly,
Yes.
Wiegand,
Yes.
Trustee Moyer,
Yes.
Trustee Teets,
No.
Mayor Shosse.
Yes.
With a vote of 6 in favor and 1 against, the motion carries.
Thank you. Members of the public will be asked to leave the room for the duration of the executive session. Virtual attendees, please note that the live stream of this meeting will be ended for the duration of the meeting. I now close the regular meeting